Hey, what's up, everyone? So, yeah, Dynamo's a lot better. I know we've been talking about that for so much lately. So I figure I would do a small little thing to help out people who are trying to pick up this weapon. Because it's been one of my favorites. I haven't played it because it's good, and well, I'm not an active comp player right now, so someone else gotta, go get some wins with it. So I'm just gonna talk a little bit about all the little things that I know. Not anything I invented or anything, just little bits of tech that I know are important to Dynamo that are important. Nothing particularly difficult, but small things you can incorporate into your gameplay. Let's start off with a simple one. Let's talk about Dynamo's movement. So, as you can see, if you full hop and horizontal flick, it times pretty much perfectly. You go into squid form right after, and you get this big jump of mobility. You can do it in conjunction with the squid roll, and it's pretty good. But short jumping is actually a little bit better. With a short jump, you can see that you have just enough time to do another hop. So if you jump, you can flick, and you can slightly modify how you're moving. You can just use this jump to continue going in the same direction, but most of the time you'll be changing up your movement just a little bit. It's just one of those small things that makes Dynamo a little bit harder to hit, and it goes really well with a squid roll. It's something that's tricky to remember if you haven't played Dynamo in a while, but it is quite strong for this weapon. So it's just one of the main things that I definitely recommend getting down. It's really useful for just smaller amounts of microspacing, and moving in two different directions instead of one direction over the course of its flick will typically make you slightly harder to flick. Or slightly harder to hit, not harder to flick. Alongside that is looking away when attacking. So Dynamo is a fairly lenient hitbox, and there are going to be times where you can look somewhere else and then just flick your aim at the person you want to. I am looking at my OBS on my rightwards monitor when I record these kind of videos, so I'm not going to be as consistent at doing that with the delay, but basically you can do stuff like that, and you can even do it with vertical flick. It's a little self-explanatory. You can kind of use your long wind-up as bait. Not particularly useful or unique to this weapon. It just happens a little bit more often because it's slow. Horizontal flicking out of rails. So let me get you to a rail stage. Anyway, so you probably already know that horizontal flick is better than vertical flick for most cases. Oh, the rail's not here in this variation. The rail's not here in this variation. 1 second. Okay, there we go. You might know that the horizontal flick is a little better than the vertical flick in most cases, but whenever you get out of a rail, you just jump and you use the vertical flick, so it doesn't seem like it's super useful. But if you just exit the rail from your squid form, it doesn't seem to work either. You will also just do another vertical flick. Now, I really don't understand why this tech works the way that it does. It's been around forever. But if you instead just press squid form twice, you get horizontal. I don't know why it works like that, but, yeah, it does work like that, so that's cool. I just realized my octaling is the wrong... I have the wrong octaling sounds. I took pictures of this for some editors of my character settings, and I guess I just hit the wrong one. That's funny. So, next up, let's talk about damage a little bit. Aiming slightly down gives you a little bit better damage with rollers. Why? I don't know, I think the shots technically travel less far or something, but it's a thing. This will lead to you probably flicking too low on targets a few times, but it's worth noting if people are near the edge of your range and you're trying to go for a one-shot or something, that yeah, you do want to aim down a little bit. It's also worth noting that sometimes it's better to aim up. While a little bit strange, aiming straight up can actually still have the one-hit kill box hit in a certain spot. And this has some utility that you can probably imagine, such as wall weapons or umbrella shields. It's not particularly consistent. You need to be very accurate with where you're hitting. As you can see, sometimes it's not hitting the exact one shot. But sometimes this is your only way out of a fight against some of these weapons. If you're dealing with a 52 in your face, or if you're dealing with umbrella, this might be your only option. And so, it is possible, now, not here with the thing right above me, it is possible, but it is a little bit difficult. So, finally, let's talk about rolling. It kind of sucks, but it has some utility. You might notice that flicks do not paint under you on this weapon, so unless if you have aura, this is a bit of a problem. So instead, you do the classic flick and spin, and you paint under yourself with that. It does take a little bit of extra time, but usually not that much more turf output, or you can just kind of roll a little bit in place. You don't have to do it in a circle, I just think the circle's fun. Yeah, if you want to just, like, flick and then roll a little bit to get paint under you, then yeah, that's kind of an option. It works a little bit. Similarly, let's talk about painting walls. Now, Dynamo doesn't struggle too much at painting walls, because it's one of the few things that this flick is kind of helpful for. But dealing with them can still be a little awkward. Maybe you want to climb a wall behind you or to the side or something, and you're attacking an opponent. You're already mid-flick, and you can't hit two people with the same flick, right? So you flick, and you do this, and you can get up the wall. So if you need to paint small walls near you, you need to get a little bit extra height, it's kind of useful. Not the most situationally great thing in the world, but sometimes it'll save you. Next up, let's talk about Sprinkler briefly. Sprinkler is very good for this weapon's movement, and I would highly recommend trying to manage your ink tank to keep it active at all times, just because it's a movement option that allows this weapon to get around a little bit more when it doesn't normally have the stage painted. This is going to be, by far, the best way to approach with something like a flick, but you can also use it to block for yourself, like you see there. So, you can combine this with the other movement tech that we talked about, right? Where you jump in, you use your Sprinkler for movement, and then you go for some kind of mobility option, like the jumping bit that I talked at the beginning. Or you could just use it to help your own, protection by using it as a bit of a meat shield. You can kind of jump into terrain and throw it at yourself. And I also tend to throw Sprinkler at myself if I'm being rushed down by a shooter weapon or something of the sort. It's pretty easy to just put Sprinkler under yourself and then flick. Just remember, if you're counting on the body blocking, if you're on high ground or something, then you don't also want to be jumping. Or you want to be, like, moving a little bit backward from the Sprinkler. So Sprinkler has a little bit of extra utility on this than it does normally, which is honestly really cool. And finally, it's worth noting Tacticooler honestly has some similar properties. It has body blocking potential, which can occasionally be useful and occasionally not be useful. Typically, your weapon's going to have more ways of hitting around the Tacticooler than other players are going to have to hit around you. Obviously, if they're very close range, it might play a factor, but usually if you're trying to stand somewhere in open sight lines, using a cooler position that's like next to cover over here can actually be quite useful. You can peek out of cover with your flicks, and your Tacticooler will also provide a little bit of protection, especially if you're painting something like a zone. Just make sure the Tacticooler spot is good before that. When it comes to the other weapon kits, there's not really as much to talk about. Super Chump and Killer Whale are a quick ink refill, especially Super Chump, which are very useful, but all the specials can function like that. There's not really any form of sub-open tech for any of them. And it is worth noting that you can use a special to cancel your flick animation. This goes for all Dynamo kits. So if you accidentally vertical flick and just want to get out of it, I guess, then you can do that. Not particularly useful, but it's there. Anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about. Just get a small little bit of info on things that make the weapon slightly better. Good luck.